Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Radar Ping for November 2022. This is actually something I've been eager to put together for a short while now. It's largely because there's plenty of stuff out there that catches my interest, but doesn't always add up to being substantial enough for its own particular singular video. So, why not a roundup? Why not stick all that stuff together in one digestible format and hopefully introduce a few people to things they might not be aware of otherwise? With that in mind, how about we kick off with a category that I'm sure is of great interest to many of you that watch this here channel. First up, we've got Realism 2, or more specifically, add-ons for Realism 2. In the intervening months since its release, some intrepid modders have taken it upon themselves to add even more content to Realism 2, chiefly in the form of packs that add additional status effect reels, monster reels, all sorts of bits and bobs, and just greatly enhances and varies up the experience, which in the first place was already greatly varied. For those of you out of the loop, Realism 2 is a wonderfully entertaining Doom mod that puts you in an arena and in successive stages will inflict multiple variations of either status effects, weapons, or enemy types on you, culminating in a ridiculous boss battle. The money that you earn during the course of any of these runs can then be cashed in at the hub in order to better arm yourself for the next attempt. It's genuinely fun stuff, just chock full of personality and humor, and now chock full of even more thanks to these fantastic add-ons, all of which can be found by visiting the official Realism site at reelism.dog and going to the add-on category. And if you're in the market for a bit more of a comprehensive breakdown of Realism 2, you could do much worse than seeking out my original Doom Mod Madness video, the link for which you'll find in the description below. Now this one might be a little too obscure for most people, but I'll hazard a guess that a few of you might have heard of the Backrooms. It's this niche, spooky horror idea that once in a while someone might just straight up no-clip through reality and find themselves in this uncanny, carpeted space between. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this hasn't already been done to death 100 times over. And of course, wouldn't you know it, there's a Doom WAD for it. If I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure that this WAD really gets at the heart of what makes the Backrooms work. For one, it's entirely too populated, but hey, at least the selection of monsters here does draw from the wider pool of custom creations for Doom. The level design, in my opinion, leaves a little to be desired. Granted, it does try to disorientate you somewhat, what with teleport line deaths landing you in alternate parts of the map, sometimes even looping you back to where you once were, and sometimes you'll find that the way forward is entirely obscured by sections of wall that you're intended to phase through yourself. Often, they're revealed by monsters on the other side attacking you through them. Sometimes you'll just stray through it as you hug the wall and unintentionally stumble through. As far as stabs at the concept go, it's loose, it's unfocused, it could be, let's face it, a hell of a lot better. As previously stated, it's entirely too busy with monsters and entirely too straightforward to let any kind of dread settle in. Something that has absolutely zero problem in that regard would be the demo for Unhinged 2. Released as a Halloween surprise, this sees you waking up in a very, very spooky apartment building with strange noises aplenty and quite a long stretch of just exploring these silent, ominously empty corridors. Eventually you'll find a crowbar which can be used to bust through this debris, and further you'll find yourself a gun. At which point, I actually found myself getting a little lost because the thread is a little opaque at this point. Turns out you meant to go all the way back to where you found the crowbar, look up, and shoot this box dangling from a chain, which, in all honesty, could probably be a little bit more obviously signposted. But believe me, once you get past that little hiccup and proceed with the critical path, the horror that it lands you in, oh my god. Contrary to popular belief, I do in fact occasionally play stuff that is not Doom, and in terms of stuff that's caught my attention this past month, DISDAIN is certainly one of them. This, oh god, it's running on GZ Doom, isn't it? I can't escape I Can't Escape. It's a Quake-inspired first-person shooter built on GZ Doom, made by the author of GZ Doom. And oh my god, those heads, they are freaking terrifying. But this is a speedy, solid, and satisfying Quake clone, and in all honesty, well worth a spin. The demo is available for free on Steam. All you gotta do is search for it, give it a whirl, have some fun, and cleave multiple enemies in twain. This past month also provided me with Faith, the Unholy trilogy. Now, I have been quite eager for this one ever since I played the Chapter 1 release, and boy, do not let first impressions steer your expectations of this one. Sure, it looks like something that's more at home on the Atari 2600. Yes, all of the dialogue sounds like it's delivered via a dot matrix printer, but oh man, if you give it some time, let it seep in, its atmosphere will get under your skin, and it will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that graphics are but a very small part of what it takes to generate effective horror. In terms of story, it follows the path of one John Ward, a disgraced priest returning to the scene of a botched exorcism, hoping to find redemption and lay his demons to rest. The first chapter of Faith features multiple endings, so too does chapter 2 and 3 if I'm not mistaken, and during your misadventure you'll also be able to glimpse some wonderfully rotoscoped animation taking advantage of the limited color palette here and providing some genuine unsettling imagery. A particular high point for me was a moment during a darkened hallway where you can only navigate through the flash of a camera, and oh boy, yeah, that's a hard nope from me. Anyway, to say much more, I feel would spoil some of the surprises that Faith will have in store for you, but if you're a fan of horror taking advantage of the 1980s satanic panic kind of setting, then this is definitely going to be up your alley. I highly recommend it, and remember, Gary loves you. As we continue to peep the horror overspill emanating from the rear end of October, I am inexorably drawn to talking about Signalis. This is very much of the old school when it comes to its particular flavor of survival horror. Taking place in a dystopian future, it places you in the shoes of a replica cyborg technician seeking the whereabouts of, I presume, a lost friend. Now I say presume because I've not actually made it very far through Signalis, about 2.5 hours worth of playtime, but even with that relatively short amount of time under my belt, I can say with reasonable confidence that this is very much my jam. As already mentioned, it's very much old school in its approach to survival horror. You've got slow, methodical, room-by-room exploration, notes, inventory management, clunky combat, and a fair amount of brain-teasing puzzles to chew your way through. It's essentially OG Resident Evil and Silent Hill couched within this slick sci-fi dystopian chassis. It's a fascinating hybrid of familiar elements that just absolutely appeals to me, and stylistically it just does a lot of things that I just absolutely love. Some people may be turned off by the more anime styled look of the characters within this, but let me assure you that both visually and tonally this is closer to, I'd say, Ghost in the Shell than, say, My Hero Academia. So yeah, if you're in the mood for a slice of classic survival horror with an eerie, dreamlike feel to proceedings that sees it lean a little bit more towards, I'd say, Silent Hill than Resident Evil, then Signalis is definitely going to be well worth your consideration. Last but not least when it comes to games over the last month that have lodged themselves firmly in my memory banks, PRODEUS. Graduating from early access to full release during the tail end of September, this now has a full-blooded campaign and an equally full-blooded roster of weaponry with which to turn your enemies into chunky salsa, or Baja Blast depending on the flavor of enemy you're dealing with. It pretty much feels like one of the boomiest boom shoots to ever boom shoot, but that said, it did end a little too abruptly for my liking. It felt like there was maybe an additional third of the game waiting somewhere in the rafters that had to be cut for some reason, but what is here is still assuredly high quality stuff. I'm honestly endlessly impressed with the kind of stuff they can achieve with the level editor that they've got in here, one that's freely available for anyone who purchases the game, and yes, that does mean that the prospect of custom levels and campaigns is wide open to everyone. In fact, there's some stellar stuff already there. I should know, I judged a few mapping competitions for it, so do yourself a solid, get yourself a copy of Prodeus, and make an utter goddamn mess. It's great. A lot of fun. Would recommend. And now for something a little different. A section that I just want to use exclusively to talk about interesting or cool stuff I've discovered in my journey around the internet, such as this, the one application of Doom running on something that has actually honestly impressed me. Screw Doom running on a pregnancy test. Couldn't care less about Doom running on a vape. But show me Doom running in NOTEPAD, and now you have my attention. What is this witchcraft, and how many souls had to be sacrificed to achieve it? In other news, Trombone Champ just seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. Not only did it bring me a great deal of joy while I was actively playing it, and butchering the selection of songs that they have available thanks to its abjectly hilarious control scheme, but custom content available for it now means that you can play things such as, well, I don't know, how about Through the Fire and the Flames by Dragon Force? Or heck, why not One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII with the extra added bonus of a custom animated background featuring Sephiroth and an extra long trombone slide. It keeps going, it really does. There's a custom map here for Liz Truss's resignation speech of all things. You want Clown Core? Done! I don't know what you're gonna do with that information, but this is a thing that exists now, and the world is objectively better off for it. But finally, anyone with a modicum of good taste will know that Sonic Robo Blast 2 is one of the finest Sonic games you could ever play through the medium of Doom. But what if I told you it could be improved? Behold. That's right, your eyes aren't deceiving you. The OG Half-Life Scientist team is now playable in Sonic Robo Blast 2. To be perfectly honest, Sonic Robo Blast 2 has a absolutely fantastic selection of custom characters, courtesy of the forums for you to download, but this just struck a particular chord with me. It's just the little touches, you know, the demonstrably slower movement speed, the weird scientist noises whenever you perform an action, the fact that Dr. Kleiner can still put off a devastating rolling attack, and on top of that, manages to cower in fear before a cabal of cute and cuddly cartoon animals. It's just something that puts me in my happy place. So I feel that just about wraps it up. I'm not entirely sure how to end this video, so all I'll say is, if you liked it, if you discovered something new, or at the bare minimum were entertained, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Oh, and feel free to subscribe. That's actually kind of useful. Very useful, in fact. But anyway, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.